Imagine being stranded in the middle of nowhere with little to no hope of survival. These situations are the stuff of nightmares, yet for some people they are a stark reality. These three insane survival stories are not for the faint of heart, but they serve as a reminder of the incredible strength that lies within us all. So sit back and prepare to be amazed. Subscribe now so you never miss another thrilling survival story. In 2012, Jose Salvador Alvarenga, a Salvadoran fisherman, embarked on what was supposed to be a routine fishing trip off the coast of Mexico. Little did he know that his life would take a harrowing turn. The nightmare began when a fierce storm hit, severing all communications and leaving Alvarenga and his inexperienced crewmate, Ezequiel Cordoba, stranded in their small, open fishing boat. With no navigational tools and a motor that was rendered useless, they were at the mercy of the ocean's currents. As days turned into weeks, the struggle for survival intensified. Food and fresh water became scarce, forcing the men to resort to drastic measures. They caught fish and birds with their bare hands, and even drank their own urine when rainwater was nowhere to be found. The physical and mental toll was immense. Ezequiel, unable to cope with the bleak reality, passed away after 4 months adrift, leaving Alvarenga to face the seemingly insurmountable challenge of survival alone. Loneliness and despair gnawed at him, but Alvarenga refused to give in. He relied on his fishing expertise to keep himself fed, using techniques like attracting fish with makeshift lures and capturing birds that perched on his boat. He managed to collect rainwater in makeshift containers, ensuring a constant supply of precious drinking water. In a world of endless ocean and crushing solitude, Alvarenga's boat became his entire universe. Sharks circled menacingly, adding to the ever-present dangers of exposure and starvation. Yet he persevered, driven by a stubborn determination to stay alive. After 438 harrowing days, the currents carried Alvarenga and his battered vessel to the shores of the Marshall Islands, over 5,500 miles away from where his ordeal began. Weak, emaciated, and barely recognizable, he was discovered by a local couple who immediately alerted authorities. Alvarenga's miraculous story of survival captured global attention as he recovered in a local hospital. Despite the physical and psychological trauma he endured, he slowly regained his strength and health, eventually returning to his native El Salvador. In 1994, Mauro Prosperi, an Italian police officer and accomplished athlete, decided to participate in the Marathon des Sables, a notoriously difficult race consisting of 6 stages and spanning 150 miles across the Sahara Desert. The race is known for its harsh conditions, with endless sand dunes and relentless heat. During the 4th stage, an unforeseen sandstorm struck, causing many runners, including Mauro, to lose their bearings. With the storm obscuring visibility, he continued to move forward, hoping to reorient himself, but the desert proved to be a disorienting labyrinth. As days passed, Mauro's food and water supplies began to run dangerously low. Desperate to survive, he resorted to drinking his own urine and consuming any creatures he could find, such as raw lizards and insects. Seeking refuge from the elements, he even took shelter in an abandoned shrine. When Mauro's situation seemed most dire, he decided to end his suffering by cutting his wrists. However, due to his severe dehydration, his blood had thickened, preventing him from bleeding out. It was as if fate intervened, urging him to persevere. Mauro pressed on, relying on his own determination. After 9 days of wandering the scorching desert, he encountered a group of nomads, and they guided him back to safety. Despite facing seemingly insurmountable challenges, he survived and later returned to the Marathon des Sables in 1998 and 2001, successfully completing the race both times. In 2004, Eric LeMarque, a former professional hockey player and avid snowboarder, set out for a day at Mammoth Mountain Ski Resort, intending to enjoy the slopes. As daylight began to wane, he decided to take one last run, a decision that would change his life. He strayed off the marked trail and soon found himself lost in the vast wilderness. Faced with freezing temperatures and the prospect of spending the night alone, Eric tapped into his inner strength and survival instincts. Over the course of 8 days, Eric battled the elements, constructing snow shelters to protect himself from the cold and using celestial navigation to traverse the unforgiving landscape. Food was scarce, but he managed to sustain himself on pine nuts and edible plants he could find. Water presented a challenge as well. Eric knew that eating snow directly could lower his body temperature and exacerbate the risk of hypothermia. To overcome this, he devised an ingenious method. He placed snow in a plastic bag and used his body heat to melt it before drinking. Despite his resourcefulness, Eric's legs began to succumb to frostbite, causing excruciating pain and loss of sensation. Yet, he remained steadfast in his determination to find help. Then, on February 14, 2004, rescuers finally located Eric and airlifted him to safety. Regrettably, the severity of his frostbite necessitated the amputation of both legs below the knees. His journey led him to write a memoir, Crystal Clear, which was later adapted into the 2017 film Six Below, Miracle on the Mountain, starring Josh Hartnett. These remarkable stories has shown the undeniable importance of survival skills in the face of adversity. Each of these individuals confronted unexpected circumstances where their lives hung by a thread, and every choice carried tremendous weight. If you ever found yourself in such a dire situation, would you have what it takes to survive?